a lot of the traditional approaches to selling have been somewhat misinterpreted. So I think, when I read these old sales books, there's nothing in there that says you should be very aggressive and manipulative or extroverted. It's the way that people interpret this information that I think is why a lot of times selling has a bad name. But the quiet selling method is really about connecting with people first and then selling. So the quiet part is, yes, being quiet and listening to what your customer is saying, right? Because the reality is it's about them and it's not about you, right? You might be selling the product or you might be the owner of the company, but all that's important to your customer is how it's valuable to them. And I find like even the best salespeople that I've ever worked with have been great listeners, right? And that's the most important part, is that you understand your customer and what they need and how what you provide fits in with what they need. Like that's the most important thing. But another part of being quiet is listening to your own intuition and paying attention to that more than, looking at all the data, right? There's such a reliance these days because there's so much data available everywhere, and we could analyze the hell out of it. But the reality is we personally as humans get tons of data in just from our intuition, from reading a room, from picking up on nonverbal cues, right? Even on Zoom, we can pick up on these things. And I think a lot of that kind of old school selling where people used to meet face to face, right? It's changed so much, just in this era of technology. I mean, not even taking into account the pandemic and that we're all on Zoom. But technology has really kind of told us, hey, look at the data, pay attention to that. And I think it's all about human connection, right? Selling, no matter what you're selling, it's one human to another. And I feel like a lot of that human connection has gotten lost. And so that's really the essence of quiet selling. Some people would say the word authentic is being overused now and people are saying it too much. But I think I noticed this really happened when social media, like I'm a little older, like I remember when there was no Facebook, right? And, with the advent of Amazon and Facebook and social reviews and, like things like Yelp, right? You can't really hide a bad product or service anymore, right? If you're selling an inferior product, you're going to get bad reviews on Yelp if you're a restaurant, or on Amazon if you're selling like a physical product, right? Or, like that is just the reality. So people kind of, and I don't think that was true 20 years ago, right? You could have a product and you could have super fancy marketing and people would buy it because it just looked good, right? And they thought that, and the marketing was designed to make you think, oh, everyone's buying this. This is like, you have to buy this to be, part of this group. You can't really get away with that anymore. You can still do that kind of marketing, but if you have terrible reviews online or people are saying terrible things about your product, then, you're going to get called out for that. So that's number one. You can't really fake the quality of your product or service anymore because that is going to be known. And it's almost like as a human, that happens too, right? Now there's LinkedIn and people can write, reviews about you as a person or as an employee or as a coworker. Because we are all so connected now, it is very hard to not be authentic. But I think people look at it in different ways. Some people, look at authenticity in a very shallow way, right? As like, oh, I'm just going to share a little bit about me. And, that's me being authentic, me saying, hey, I'm a mom, I have 2 kids. So I think people take it to different levels of what they're comfortable with. But I think to be truly authentic is really to be open about, who you are and what you represent. And I feel like this could be such a lengthy conversation because I've had this conversation with people who are talking about, women of color and diversity and how, that's a whole different conversation. But I think really it's about, showing who you actually are as a person, and everyone's different. Now, it's tricky in sales because, if you don't believe in your product or it doesn't do something that you say it does, you're in a little bit of a tricky situation, right? I have left jobs because I was not comfortable with the product of, of the service that I was selling. But at the same time, I've also, like no product is a perfect fit for everyone. So I'm also honest enough that if I was selling something and it was not a good fit, I would tell someone like, oh, well, maybe it's not a good fit for you. Um, so I think it's different for every person, but it's got to go beyond than just sharing personal details, right? Like being an authentic person is really like being vulnerable and really being transparent about who you are. One example that I've given, and I think this is actually why a lot of salespeople come across like that, is because they're trying to be someone that they're not, right? They are told at the car dealership or wherever, they're told this is what you're supposed to do, right? Or they see it modeled by someone else, and it's not their personality. So it comes off as very inauthentic. So, for example, if I go and pretend to be an extrovert, and I actually have tried this like early in my career, I was like, I'm just going to try to be like so and so because they're great at selling and like maybe I should be more like that person, right? So I've tried that on and it was like it felt so fake to me and I can't imagine what it looked like to someone who was on the other side of that, but I was like it must have looked somewhat ridiculous and it made, I didn't feel very secure in myself, pretending to be someone I'm not, right? I'm not the person who goes and shakes everyone's hand and makes small talk. If I try to do that, that does not come across as authentic and people spot that right away. So part of that is like, don't try to adapt your personality or change it to be what you think someone wants. It's not going to serve anyone well. So much comes from your inner confidence, really. And once you have that or you lose that, it is very noticeable to other people. They might not be able to put their finger on what it is, but they will feel something is off. And that's enough for them to, make a decision. Hey, they don't want to work with you. They don't want to hire you, whatever it is. So I do think a lot of it comes to marketing, right? But there are a lot of different parts to marketing, right? So there are some products that are pretty basic, right? Like, Google is a pretty basic product. It's not like that exciting or intriguing. But then you see they do fun things on their homepage, right? On National Women's Day, they might have like a great like image on the Google homepage, right? Or, Gmail is a pretty boring product. But I would say that interest and intrigue, it doesn't have to just be about the product. It could be about you as a person as well, right? There's so many different elements to that. So I feel like that's part of being a salesperson is being creative. And I love this scrappy salesperson, persona, because I think as a salesperson, you have to be willing to figure stuff like that out. No matter what level you're at, how can I create some intrigue around this product that maybe is not that intriguing? Maybe I do have to sell a Toyota Camry, right? Like, how do I make that intriguing? Maybe I'm the intriguing part of that I am going to sell you and be like a more interesting person, or maybe it's the way that I deliver the information, right? And of course, not everyone can be as intriguing as a Tesla. That's the reality. But, I would say even for what I do, right? I sell essentially sales training, but the words quiet and selling often don't go together. So I find for some people, if they're interested in that, they're like, oh, that sounds different than what I've heard before with selling. Like, I want to find out more. And I think the idea is just to create that intrigue, just enough to get them to the next step, which is finding out more about your product. So maybe it's, a lot of businesses will do white papers, right? How can you make a somewhat intriguing white paper? There's a lot of people who do the same things, but think about what would be interesting. I just mentored a group of 10 startups for a startup incubator in San Francisco, and they all were able to take, they all had different products and services, but they were all able to come to like have an angle in their marketing or in their sales that was somewhat intriguing. And water treatment can be intriguing, like, online training can be intriguing. Like, there were all different types of businesses there. So, the level of intrigue is going to be different, but it's just, just taking a unique angle or perception of it.